everyone, welcome to the Woolen Spinning Podcast. My name is Rachel and I can be found pretty much everywhere as well for pearls. I'm coming to you from just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada, where I live with my husband, our 2 kids under 4, and our 2 golden retrievers named Charlie and Charlotte. This is a spinning podcast and I talk mostly about my spinning, my learning curves, and knitting with my hand spun. So if this is your first time tuning in, I hope you enjoy it. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I have a couple of things to cover before we jump into the show. I was really sick over the weekend and I had recorded the show, but I was sniffling the whole time, and I'm hoping it won't be too bad today, but I want the show to be shorter. That was the whole point of recording more often. So that is why I am recording again. And it's just going to be a little bit of a shorter show. The idea is to keep them around 40 minutes, and I'm going to watch the time because I was tired and I was kind of rambling. The first thing that I have to announce is the giveaway winner for the Smith & New pencil roving. This is Superwash BFL. These are not the true colors. It's way more interesting than this. There's purple in here, and teal and royal blue, and yeah, it's just really pretty. This was from Smith & New in Kamloops, British Columbia. And the winner of this was drawn on random number generator before the show. It was actually done on the weekend because I recorded already. And this is actually going to Maya, who is Selkhet, Selkhet on Ravelry, and that was post number 39. So that was from the Goals and Aspirations thread for 2016. I am going to open the thread again so that people can continue sharing and we can start chattering about our goals and how we're doing with our goals for the rest of the year. But I had locked it so that people couldn't continue to put their goals in there because I was drawing for the prize. The only thing that I will say is I'm really, really glad that Maya won because she's also participating in the hashtag Zero to Hero 2016 spackle that is going on in the group. One of her goals was to spin her Lincoln fleece that's been in her stash for over a year, and also to build community and to get to know more crafty people. And that's just awesome because that is what the group is for, and that's certainly what I am hoping to build in the podcast. So Maya, this will come to you. If you could please PM me your address on Ravelry, your mailing address, I will get this out to you ASAP. The other bit of housekeeping that we have is this almost 4 ounce, it's a little bit shy of 4 ounces, braid of Cheviot that I dyed up. This is for the Fall into Winter Cow on the Stitch Addiction podcast group. This was for socks. We were all knitting socks together. Anybody who knits hand spun socks and puts them in the FO thread will be entered to win a braid of Cheviot, which is an awesome fiber for socks. So get your entries into that. Kate will close that at the end of the month, and she will draw the first show in February on the Stitch Addiction podcast, and then I will send that out to whomever wins. The last wee bit of housekeeping is in the introductions thread. Please get your introductions into in the Ravelry group in the thread for a 1-year subscription to Ply Magazine. I've been trying to keep the chatter to a minimum and not say hello to absolutely everybody who is saying hello and introducing themselves. Thank you so much to you guys for doing that. I think we're up to like 125 or something now. It's just amazing. I will close this thread at the end of February, so we've got a bit to go, but that is for a 1-year subscription to Ply Magazine. I also received this in the mail 2 weeks ago now, I think, and this was the last issue that I needed to complete my library of Ply Magazine, so I'm really pleased that now I have all of the issues, so that was really wonderful. And it's a fantastic magazine, as is Knitty Spin, which is part of Knitty.com, and I like Spin Off too. It's a good magazine. Ply and Knitty Spin are kind of the 2 places that I go for a lot of my information. And I think that's it for housekeeping. So we're just gonna blast through all of this. I'm going to talk about my finished spins next, and I don't have a lot to show you. I have a couple of things. The first thing is this BFL. This isn't really a finished spin. I didn't do this while in between weeks of the show, but this was some BFL that I had sampled before Spinzilla, and it was the prototype for the BFL alpaca blend that I did for my Snoqualmie shawl back in December, and when I spun it during Spinzilla. Anyways, this came off really, really ropey and really high twist, and this yarn is actually the reason for my changing my sampling and fiber prep Oh, I'm at a loss for words. Changing the fiber prep choice that I did for my Pacific Spirit that I'm doing the canopy shawl out of for the 0 to Hero spackle that is going on in the group. The reason is because BFL has a real tendency to get quite ropey if it's over twisted, and my singles were way over twisted, and then I put way too much twist when I was plying. So I ran this back through my wheel going the other way. So I spun it clockwise, which is Z twist, and then I applied it S twist, which is going anti-clockwise, and then I threw it back through the wheel one more time. I made a center pull ball to take some of that twist out, but I had already finished it, so I'd already washed it, soaked it, thwacked it, snapped it. So it's not perfect. A lot of that twist didn't come out, but you know, it's amazing how much of it actually did relax, and it'll be great for like stripes and a toque, whatever, and it's actually amazingly soft considering how much twist was in it originally. So if your arms over twisted when you pull them off, or they're underplied, when you pull them off, you can always put them back through the wheel one more time. You can make a center pull ball and just pull it from the center, and you can just put it through one more time. Nobody says your yarn is finished until you do. The other thing that I've been working on is my Shetland, and this was Custom Woolen Mills Shetland. Custom Woolen Mills is in Alberta, and they do roving. So this was not comb top, this was roving, and it came in a 1 pound tube, and when I opened it, it went like boof, just all over our kitchen. It just exploded. So that was fun. I started this during Spinzilla, and I abandoned it because I was having a lot of trouble with my uptake. So this is what it looks like. This is all of it finished. And I entered this for my Completely Twisted and Arbitrary Spin the Bin 2016. So this was one of the things that I really wanted to get finished right away so that it would be off my wheels. And I did start it, like I said, during Spinzilla, but I was having a lot of trouble with uptake, and I thought at the time that it was because it was getting stuck in the hooks in my wheel. And because there's a lot of kemp in this, and a lot of there's guard hairs and stuff, this was definitely a coated Shetland, which means that there was the soft undergrowth, the under fleece, and then there's also a tougher outer coat. Icelantics are kind of the most famous coated sheep, and of course they're popular right now. So that's what it looks like. You can see all the guard hairs and all the kemp and stuff in there, but it turned out really beautifully. So I thought all that stuff was getting stuck on my hooks, but that actually wasn't the case at all. What was happening was my uptake wasn't high enough. So I did this with a long backwards draw. So I was pinching it here, let the twist build up, and then I was opening my fingers and laying the twist into my fiber supply, pinch again, pull back, let the twist build up, open my fingers, let the twist in, pinch, pull back. Very slow, very methodical process. And what was happening was when I was ready to wind on, it wasn't going on. And so I kept thinking, oh, it's stuck on the hooks. And finally, I increased my uptake just a slight bit. And because I hadn't had that much uptake when I had done my sampling. So when I did these singles, I'd had very, very light uptake. So I was really worried to start playing with that and change possibly the thickness of my singles. But my uptake just wasn't high enough. So when I upped my uptake, it just spun beautifully after that. And I ended up doing an unsupported long draw where I wasn't doing the pinching at all. I was just pulling back, letting the twist build up, pull back, let it run into my fiber supply and wind on. Like, it was just a really lovely way of spinning. And I did a whole bunch of it at my guild, at my Weavers and Spinners Guild on Tuesday night. It was awesome. I got 2 big bobbins done, and that was the last of it. And I plied it up, and it's done. I haven't washed it. I have no idea what my yardage is. I know it's probably around 500 yards, maybe even a little bit less. So it's not great yardage. It's definitely worsted weight, and it's going to bloom probably a little bit when I wash it. Oh, worst skein ever. So I think it's going to be a vest. This is a little bit toothy. I don't particularly want it next to my skin, although it's not that bad. I keep saying it's too toothy for next to my skin, which is saying something because I have very high tolerance. It's actually not too bad. I'm thinking a vest with a shawl collar. to go under my down-filled vest, which is a forest green color. When we're camping, I often get, like, I just need an extra layer, but I need my arms free. So I was thinking something that would go under that would be really great. So I'm thinking that this might be it. And the first thing my husband said when I pulled this off, he's so funny. He's like, that's really rustic. I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but it is definitely rustic. And I don't think I'm going to dye it. I think I'm going to walk in the shoes of the Knit British podcast, and I think I'm going to work with just the natural shades. There's a hashtag natural shades, spin along, knit along going on right now. Knit along. I don't have time to spin up a whole bunch of natural shades right now, but I think I'm going to leave this because of the spirit of that cal. It's really inspired me. So that is done. The last thing that is done was a thick and thin that I showed you guys a couple of times ago that I was just starting. If you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen this, a couple of videos of me, or one video and a couple of photos of me kind of learning how to do the thick and thin. This is new for me, a new technique. The fibers from West Coast Color and Carding, which is my friend Lynn, who actually just doesn't live in the Greater Vancouver area anymore. Her and her husband have moved up to the Okanagan. For those of you who are from British Columbia, you know where I mean. And that is that. So these are samples for teaching. I'm going to wind this into a center pole ball this weekend, and I'm going to ply it with probably white, maybe a pink, I'm not sure, just to do a spiral ply to have another example for the class. So this will be the one sample, and this will be a differential plied, so we can start talking about differential plying. So those were for teaching. Nothing super interesting. I learned a lot. My thin bits are thin, my thick bits are thick. There's definitely a trick to twisting your wrist to get those thick bits to be thick. I don't know what I will do with thick and thin. Like, I don't foresee myself spinning a ton of it, but I enjoyed the process anyhow. So that was that. Oh, I'm sorry for my nose. Like I said, we've been super sick, and I was in bed all weekend, and I don't wish these colds on anyone. I feel like that is the finished stuff. Other than this Sweet George Aaron's Club reveal, which will come at the end for those of you who don't want to see it. Hand spun knitting. I'll talk about my hand spun knitting next because I don't really have a ton to show you. Sorry for the crinkling. So do you guys remember a while ago I was working on I can't remember what it's called, but I think it was called the folded papers, folded origami. It was a Pearl Soho pattern, and I was knitting it out of some bats that I had spun up in the summer that I'm just in love with the yarn, but I wasn't in love with the fabric. So I have pulled the needles out. And you can see how, like, all that barber pulling and all that marling of the yarn just makes it really, like, busy. It makes the garter stitch very busy. It makes the fabric very busy. And the only parts that I really liked of this were these parts up here that are a little bit plainer and not so crazy. So I thought, okay, well, if that's the case and this whole thing is turning up totally crazy, look at this big strip of white in there. Like, I just hate that. So I decided to pull my needles out of it because I needed the needles for this other project. And last week my best friend called me, and her aunt had passed away, and she was heading on the ferry to Nanaimo. And for those of you who are from here, you'll know where I'm talking about. And she's coming from the Vancouver side, so she had a little bit of a ferry ride to get to Nanaimo from Horseshoe Bay. And her and I tried to come up with this really simple triangular shawl pattern that she could do without having to write down a pattern. She doesn't have to, like, count stitches. She doesn't have to do anything. And we came up with this. So I started knitting mine with her, mostly sort of because I'm thinking a lot right now about her family, and our husbands are good friends, and we all get along really well. And she's one of my best friends, and we're just really, really, really close. And I wanted to be able to knit along with her. And I like this a lot better. So this is the neck portion. So I'm not too concerned about all of this marling up in here, because a lot of that will be around my neck and hidden. But it's just a very simple triangular shawl. No patterning. There will be a garter stitch border, which I'm saving some of my more neutral skeins that aren't so crazy for that part. And I'm going to knit this until I run out of yarn. So I'm really excited about this, and I've been kind of saving it for when I need quiet knitting time, and that's the rest of the ball from what I ripped out of the original sweater. And I'll finish this up, and then I'll reskein this and knit that up, and then I'll go into my skeins that I have stored right now. So I'm really feeling good about this. It's going to be a really interesting textural shawl. It'll show off the colors that were in the yarn and the bats. It'll just be plain stockinette. There'll be nothing for it to compete with. And because these are the colors that I wear all the time, I think that will be the centerpiece of what I'm wearing, rather than putting a shawl over top because you're cold and you want to wear something. So I'm actually really excited about that. I love that yarn, and I really wanted a way to showcase it, and the origami cardigan, whatever it's called, it just wasn't doing it. So the garter stitch, amazingly enough, was too busy and too crazy. I'm not going to show you my Cheviot socks. I'm not going to show you my succulent shawl this time because I showed them to you last week and they're exactly the same. I have almost turned the heel on on my Cheviot sock, and I have done a couple more lace repeats of the succulent shawl, but that's it. So I'd rather show you new stuff. So I think for my handspun knitting, that's kind of it for this week. Spins in progress. So this is where it gets fun. That's why I wanted to skip this Cheviot socks and the succulent shawl. Okay, so do you remember, so on Instagram I had posted this Romney that I had naturally dyed, and actually I left the original fiber over there because I haven't carded all of it up, but it was really felted and quite fulled from the dyeing process, and I was really disappointed, but it was the first thing I'd ever dyed, and I was just too rough with it. But I drum carded it up, and look what magically happened. It fixed it because I hadn't really felted it. I had more just like been a bit too brutal with the fiber. So I've been sampling it on my Lendrum because you guys know how much I love sampling on my Lendrum. I'm just doing a really low twist yarn, and I'm just playing with it. It's actually amazingly soft for how beaten up it is, and I love the color. It's not really my color, like it's not really a color that I can really rock. But I'm going to see it through and spin up the yarn and see what I think afterwards, because actually it's a color that would be awesome on Nora, and I was thinking about doing a shawl for her eventually that she could wear when she's a little bit older. So that's what I've been doing with that. So that's kind of neat. I'm not going to do anything with it just yet, but that's sort of in the back of my mind. The other thing I have been working on, this is part of my Completely Twisted and Arbitrary Spin the Bin, is my Falkland. I'm still working on that. Oh, sorry, there's a crow that just like almost ran into our window right here, and it's quite a big one. I was sort of surprised. So this is my Falkland that I've been spinning up. So my new rule is before I work on anything else, I have to do a bobbin of my Falkland. So I have a bobbin almost finished. I'm going to finish it after I finish chatting with you guys, and then I can work on something else. And then, you know, before I do another bobbin of something else, then I have to do another bobbin of my Falkland before I can move on. That's how I'm like keeping myself going with it, because it's just getting to be a bit of a slog. So I've been working on my Falkland, and then the other thing that I've been working on is my Pacific Spirit that I showed you guys last time that I sampled, and I'm really sorry again for the technical stuff that happened with the episode last week. I think what happened was I had put the two segments together, and I think what happened was Nora was playing with, on the computer, and I didn't think she'd actually hit anything, but I think she deleted the first segment and then copied the second one, and so the two segments came up together, and you never got to see the first part. So if you haven't gone back and rewatched episode 14, the whole sampling story from how I spin my singles and figure out what I like for my singles to how I figure out what yarn I like, that was all missing. So you didn't even get the whole story, and yet people were still like, oh, this is so helpful. So that's really awesome. That even giving part of the story is helpful. So this was the card, and like I said, go back to 14. It starts at 2 minutes 10 seconds, and you'll get the whole story of how I sample. So you were missing a whole bunch of information. So this is what the skein looked like once it was dry, and I just love it. It's fuzzy, and it's heathered, and nothing yells at you for color, and yet it's interesting. And actually, it's kind of funny because the part of the skein that I had that I had sampled for you didn't have any of the blues and the browns in it. But now that I've been spinning more of it, which I'll show you in a minute, I'm getting to that part, and it just makes the yarn even more interesting and yet still completely analogous. So if you remember from episode 14, I took the braid of fiber and I drum carded it up, and then I pulled it off into these little nests. And the original fiber looks like this. I'm not going to pull it out of the bag because it's just too much crinkling. But that's what the original fiber looked like. So you can see why I wanted to make it a little bit more analogous for the Canopy Shawl by Melody of the Mandarins podcast. And this is my almost finished first bobbin. It's not quite done, but you can see how fuzzy that is, and interesting, and yeah, I really like it. I think it's going to be really lovely. And with this silk in there, it makes it really, it has a lovely luster along with the BFL. It's just really been lovely to spin. So this weekend I'd get these like little tiny bursts of energy. And so every time I'd get a little burst of energy, I'd go and check in with my husband, make sure he was okay with the kids. And then I would spin for a few minutes and then I'd go back to bed. Because I didn't feel like knitting. Can you believe it? I didn't have the brain power to knit, but I could sit at my wheel and just sit there like a lump and spin and then move on to the next thing. And then the other thing I started was actually something that it has just been nagging at me for a while, and I just wanted to like start it. This was some superwash wool that I dyed up back in November, and it was just crazy speckle dyed. It's nothing interesting. It's just superwash wool. I got it as part of the Louette review back around Spinzilla when they did all those Spinzilla packs. And like, it's just, I dyed it really crazy. I just was really kind of playing with speckle dyeing, and yeah, I didn't know what I was doing, and I was just having fun. So I divided this up into 3 of these equal weight bumps. And then I continued to strip them down into these little nests of fiber. And so I have a whole bunch of these little nests. I have tons of them. And I started spinning. And I'm doing this on my Hansen while I'm cooking dinner and waiting for water to boil and sort of not really doing a whole heck of a lot else. And that is how it is spinning up. So I'm going for roughly 40 wraps per inch, so that'll give me a fingering weight yarn of somewhere between 19 and 22 wraps. So each ply is going to hopefully be about 40 wraps per inch, and then that'll give me my what I'm going for in terms of finished yarn. So that's on my Hansen downstairs. You guys know how I feel about my Hansen, but when it comes to this kind of stuff that's kind of mindless and just get it done to get the yarn, because I just want to knit the socks, because that's what this is going to be for. That's where, for me, the Hansen is perfect. I don't want to think about what I'm doing. I just want it to be a ton of twist, and there's no nylon in this, so it needs to be really, really high twist. I wanted a 3-ply, and I'll just get it done, ply it up, and then hopefully start knitting. And then the last thing is for the Zero to Hero 2016 spackle that's going on in the group. This was my Clun Forest. I showed this to you eons ago. This was my dyed sample that I had done after I had spun it up. Clun Forest is a down breed. It's very, very bouncy and springy when it's spun up. It can be quite dense. It can be very difficult to spin it very evenly because of it being a down breed, and it tends to grab. The fibers tend to not want to be friends with one another, so it tends to be quite difficult to get it to get the camera to focus, to get it to be really super even. So I did find it a little bit difficult to get it to be really super even, but I liked this sample and I dyed it, and then I knit the rest of it up. And my plan is to knit the Charlie's cardigan by Amy Herzog. So I had swatched the lace, and this is a 2-ply, I believe. And there are some really, really thin spots in my knitting that was just basically from lack of kind of knowing what I was doing with the woolen spinning and just needing more practice. So there's a thin spot in there. And I think now it would be a slightly different story, but I'm planning on dyeing this in probably logwood when the yarn is finished. So I've got all my carded up bats. This was a fleece that Chrissy and I bought eons ago from a local Clun Forest flock. There's more details than that, but it was so long ago. Anyways, my plan, this is my second project for the spackle in the group. So I'm really hoping to get going on this, and this will be kind of my primary spinning for the next few weeks, because I really want to get going on that, because it's probably going to take me quite a long time to kind of like the Falkland, to kind of work away at it. So I can't believe it. I think that's everything. I blasted through that. Okay, so coming up next is the Sweet George Yarns Club reveal. For those of you who don't want to see it and don't want to see spoilers, I will see you next time. I'll be back the second Thursday of February. And until then, happy spinning. And for the rest of you, I'll slot in some photos of what the fiber looked like here. It was a Polworth and silk blend, and the colorway was called Wintergreen. Okay, so my colors. I loved these colors. This was the club insert card that came with it. Felicia wrote this month about how much she loves the mountains and how much she misses spending time on the mountains. And I really... I get it. Her and I are both snowboarders. We both really miss that time in our life when we were up on the mountains and kind of free spirits. That's it there. Yeah, just, it's a time in our life, and now our kids are small, and eventually they'll grow, and we'll be right up there again with them. So about Polworth, she writes, Polworth is always a delightful surprise. It spins beautifully with a little glittery shine from the silk. And then it poofs up and becomes a bouncy, springy hank of yarn after wet finishing. And she talks about how this particular colorway is quite analogous. So it would spin up into a beautiful 2-ply, and also because of the puffiness of the fiber, a slubby yarn or thick and thin would look great too. I decided not to do a thick and thin because I love these colors so much that I was thinking like fingerless mitts for myself, or a toque for myself for next year. I really enjoyed spinning this. It was fast to spin, and I really had a lot of fun spinning this. The floodlights are kind of blowing out the colors a little bit, but that's basically what it looks like. I was actually quite surprised when I pulled this off how even it is. It's very consistent. It has a lovely like sproing to it. And I spun this at quite a high ratio. I think I spun it at 17 to 1 or 22.5 to 1. It was quite a high whirl ratio, and the reason why I did that was because for every draft back, which was about 1.5 inches, I would draft. I did the short backwards draft, which is my favorite worsted draft, and I tried to be very consistent. And then when I applied it back, again trying to be very consistent. I think I did 3 or 4 treadles per 3 or 4 inches. I can't remember the exact what I did, but basically it gave me a very consistent, really lovely balanced twist after it was washed. So before it went into the to be washed into the bath, the skein twisted a couple of times, and then after I had washed it and snapped it and stuff, it just had really a lovely, it just hung really nicely. And because of the silk content, of course, it has a lovely drape. And anyways, it just ended up being really lovely yarn. I don't really know what else to say about it because it's just really, really, really pretty. And I'm really happy with it. And it's another one of those braids of fiber that I probably wouldn't have bought. And I just really enjoyed spinning it, and I'm looking forward to knitting with it. So I'm hoping that that'll be up on my needles probably this summer, and I'll do something for next fall. So that was this. I can't remember what my yardage was. I feel like I got 300 and something. If you don't mind hanging out with me for just a second longer, I will actually look it up, because I know that's something that people like to get an idea of, sort of how much yardage with more experience and more spinning you can start to sort of achieve, because I was going for a sport weight, which is what I got, and so I got roughly 320 yards roughly of a sport weight, so that's perfect. And like I said, I really, the camera wasn't going to focus no matter what I did, so I just really like this. It's a great color for me, and I really love the grays in here. It was a wonderful month, yeah, I'm looking forward to February, and because every month has been a surprise for me. Every month's been like, oh yeah, that's okay, that's nice. And every month I see it spun up, and I'm like, oh, I love that. And then the next month, no, I love that more. So it's been kind of an interesting, an interesting exercise for me, because every month is sort of another lovely surprise to see it knit up, or to see it spun up, sorry, and to see how that vision goes from the painted braid to what it looks like when it's spun. So I'm finding every month I'm getting my fix of sort of spinning a 4-ounce braid of fiber, and then I'm kind of looking for other things that I want to mix in with it instead of just always doing a 4-ounce braid. I have definitely realized that I prefer spinning bigger projects like my Falkland or the Clun Forest and stuff, and that's been a really interesting kind of aha moment for me. So that's all I'm going to show and share with you today, because that puts the show at about half an hour 40 minutes, which is exactly where we want to be. So that's awesome. This is just a really quick what I'm wearing. This is Stephen West's Eastern shawl. This is knit out of Baroque Ultra Alpaca. It's nothing special, and I knit it up in the space of about 4 days. It was super easy, and I wear it like a cardigan because it's often damp here, and I just need something to pull on over my shoulders, which was certainly the case today. So I'm going to say goodbye. I will see you guys next episode. And until then, happy spinning.